When it comes to comic books, one of the trickiest parts is figuring out where do you start. Older comics are trickier to figure out than modern comics. Older comics would have numbers like 58, 62, 74. Modern day comics, though, have a lot different ways you can get them. The two main ways to get comic books are single issue or a trade paperback. These are fancy terms we like to use. A single trade is kind of like a magazine almost. It's usually 20 to 25 pages. Sometimes there's special issues that are even more, but it's a little book you can kind of flip through. Trade paperbacks are like a collection of those single issues, and they typically range from 3 issues to make up one volume, sometimes up to like 15. But the tricky part is comic books are always rebooting themselves. Almost every 5 to 6 years there's a reboot, so it's really tricky to figure out where do you start with a character. So I made this quick little video just to kind of give you a jumping on point for some characters like Superman, and there will be more videos coming out soon, but we're going to start here with Superman. So I have to admit, as a child, I would love comic books as well. But if I went to the store, I'd often find I grabbed Volume 2 of X-Men, Volume 6 of Spider-Man, stuff like that. So it wasn't until my teenage years I started to figure out what I was really doing. So this video more kind of serves a purpose for the younger collectors out there who want to get into comics rather than the experienced people. So without further ado, let's get into some starting points for Superman. One of the best places to start with Superman is Superman for All Seasons. This story by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale details the early origins of Superman and how he became the superhero he is today. This book is great for starters and includes many great feats of Superman and many great emotional family moments. Another good place to start reading Superman is with Superman Birthright. This story retells Superman's origin story for a new audience. This story sees Clark Kent travel the world trying to find his purpose. You get to see him in Africa, you get to see him as a reporter protecting a man who was wanted by terrorists. You see him become Superman and save Jimmy and Lois. You see him get to deflect bullets and be an all-around awesome dude. To tell you the truth, this is most likely my favorite Superman origin and one of my favorite all-around Superman books. Another good place to start with Superman is Superman Earth 1. This series is a book of 3 volumes and was a reboot for the character. Earth 1 took characters back to their origin and retold how they started. Superman Earth 1 is one of my personal favorites, and it really resets the character in a modern day setting, kind of like the movie Man of Steel. The series includes many great feats of Superman, whether it's taking down bad guys or just emotional stories about family. There's even one of the sweetest stories about Superman's cat that's almost guaranteed to make you cry. Big villains like General Zod and Parasite show up as well, and the book is just great start to finish. Volumes 1 through 3 are all that exists as of now. Another good starting point for fans who want to get into Superman is Superman's Secret Origin. Anyone who's a fan of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies will likely like this book. The character's design and artwork is based off the movie. You have Superman, who looks exactly like Christopher Reeve, Lois Lane, who looks a lot like Margaret Kidder, Jor-El looks like Marlon Brando. Despite its similarities, this book is nothing like Superman the movie. It has a lot of changes and a lot of things that are good and bad. But for most fans, it's very good. You see a young Clark Kent and Lex Luthor who are actually friends. You see the Legion of Superheroes, and you get to see Superman develop into the man he is. Another good place to start is the New 52 Superman. In 2011, New 52 happened, and it reset most characters back to their normal origin. Now, this Superman varies from the normal Superman you would likely know. He's got a new suit. Lois Lane and him aren't really dating. They're more kind of friends at this point. You have Jimmy Olsen. The Justice League is just getting established. There's a lot of changes from what you likely know. To tell you the truth, the Superman books aren't that great, but there's a lot of great artwork and some really cool moments here and there, and the books got better as they went on. So if you do start to read this, just know that at the beginning it kind of stinks, but it gets a lot better as it goes on. And there's some real gems in there, like Superman Unchained with Jim Lee's artwork. This book is just fantastic and has some of the coolest moments ever. Not to mention, Jim Lee's artwork is phenomenal. In addition, Justice League had some really great Superman moments that you'll love. And those are the best options for getting started on Superman. That being said, I have some more options here for the more experienced readers who want to get into Superman and kind of know him well enough to know what's going on. The first option is Superman Unchained. If you're decently in the loop with Superman's origin, this book is pretty awesome. Another really great place to read is Superman Rebirth. In Rebirth, we got to see Superman and Lois Lane as parents. Their kid, Jonathan Kent, is just adorable. You have to love him. Overall, there's some great stories between Superman and his son, and the family dynamic is just fantastic. And you can read that all the way up to Brian Michael Bendis' run, and even that is fantastic. Many Superman villains show up, such as Metallo, Parasite, General Zod, Rogol Zar, and overall, it's just a fantastic comic run. My final recommended reading spot for Superman is The Death of Superman. In this book, you get to see Superman sacrifice to save the human race from the evil Doomsday. In this book, he has an epic fight with Doomsday and sacrifices his life to save everyone. It's emotional, it's fantastic, I highly recommend it. But fear not, he's not actually dead. He ends up returning in this really cool black suit, and you get to meet some fantastic characters like Superboy, Steel, the Eradicator, Cyborg Superman, and then he eventually returns to his regular suit. Now, the show Smallville came out when I was a child, but I caught it in my teenage years and rewatched it multiple times. A teenager developing superpowers while being an alien is a pretty cool story. Not to mention, he lives on a farm and has to keep his powers a secret from almost everyone. Over time, he slowly opens up to his friends, he meets Lois Lane, he develops enemies like Metallo and Lex Luthor, and he eventually gets a job as a reporter, and he finally becomes Superman. But there was one story that took place after the TV show ended, and that's Smallville Season 11, which told the story of Clark after he had become Superman. He's no longer the red-blue blur or the blur, he's just Superman now. You get to see him living with Lois and enjoying his life as Superman, and developing powers and meeting new characters. You get to see him meet the Justice League, and it starts with Batman and Nightwing, and he eventually meets Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and many others. Overall, this book's pretty awesome and has a lot of cool plot points. I think you'd really like it if you pick it up, even if you're not a fan of the show. Watching this video, I hope you can finally find somewhere to start with Superman, or find a book you can start reading with. Overall, Superman's a great character, and a lot of people say he's overpowered, and in some ways he is. But the Superman story is not about his powers and how he uses them. The Superman story is about an alien who feels like an outsider on planet Earth, and he wants to blend in and get along and help people best he can. But sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. A lot of people would say Superman's so overpowered that he's unrelatable. But the truth is, he may be an alien, and you can't relate to that. But Superman's also a loner, who lost his planet, lost his people, and now he's trying to find his place, and he's trying to understand what's his purpose. And in some ways, that's very relatable. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy some of those recommendations I made.